Hey guys, Jim from Import Image Racing and welcome back to the channel. On this week's video, we're going to be taking a deeper dive and installing the new Noble NBS heated and wide angle mirrors for the V8 chassis WRX. We're going to be covering both of the standard mirror plus the wire up for the integrated turn signal. You're not going to want to miss it. A good discussion to kick this whole video off is what are they and why do I want them? Those are two very good questions. Let's start by opening the box. The particular box that I'm opening up is including the integrated turn signals. Now, I actually have the original base style on the car now. If you saw my video prepping for SubiFest, you would see that I just kind of got them on the car and able to get down to the event, saw how I like them, plus check out the quality and fitment and see if I wanted to upgrade to the integrated turn signals. Which is what we're going to do here today, because I think you're going to get the most amount of value if you take a look at how this turn signal is wired up, and then you can make an educated decision on whether you do or you don't want the integrated turn signals. That helps me out already, because now that means I have the original mirrors already off the car, so we can compare them to our new Noble NBS mirrors. Yes, already looking pretty good. And the first thing you're going to notice right off the bat is most likely the color difference, not to mention the wide angle of the new mirror compared to the old mirror. The wide angle is just fantastic to get rid of a lot of blind spots that you might have already in the car. Also, with all of these new models that keep coming out with HIDs and LED style headlights, this blue hue that you see here really helps kind of tame all that stuff in your side view mirrors when you drive at night. Just like your factory mirrors, you have your two prongs for the heating element, so all of the defrost will work just like your factory. You only gain, there's nothing to lose. If you opt for the turn signal option, you will get these two leads that come out of the back of the mirror. Also in our box, we have additional wire leads that will go into wiring that up, and all of our little tiny clamps and clips to help us wire everything with no hassle. On the other side, if you happen to order the mirrors without the turn signal options, it's just going to come with two mirrors that both have the heating element. That makes installation super simple, which we will cover in just a moment. On the topic of installation, we have the back of our factory mirror to help you get more mentally prepared on how to remove your lens. As you can see, there's two clips on the bottom and two L brackets on the top. You're gonna get yourself a panel popper, get in from underneath, and if you just pop out the back, the top end of the mirror will slide out. To reinstall the mirror, we'll do the exact opposite. While we slide and wedge the top up, we can pretty much just pop the bottom back in onto the clips, and our new mirror will be installed. That's about as simple as it gets if you've opted for the mirror without the integrated turn signal. Since I did opt for the integrated turn signal, and this is an installation video, let's get to the nitty-gritty. First, we're going to remove our lens, and then we can move over to the front of the mirror where we will remove our painted and unpainted mirror covers. And this is definitely going to help with wiring later on in the video. Once inside the car, we're going to have to remove our door card, which is going to allow access to our mounting points for our mirror and also our connector behind the card. We will be removing the entire mirror assembly and taking it over to the bench. Once on the bench, we can take our wiring harness out of the box and we can begin to feed this wiring harness through our mirror. Which reminds me, if you saw any of the VB chassis stuff, you'll notice that there is a huge difference. When we are walking over to the car and having to do our wire up, in the VB, we have to run our wiring harness through the boot into the kick panel. In this car, we don't have to do that. There is a connector right behind the door that we can focus on. Once our mirror lens has been removed, we can focus on our heating element wires. Luckily for us, the polarity of these wires does not matter, so we can just pull them off of the prongs, not paying too close of attention on which side is which. Next, we're going to remove the lower plastic portion of our mirror, and you will see there are just three clips that hold this piece on. Sometimes you can just kind of pull it from the bottom and it'll release. Other times you might have to kind of push from in here since we have our lens off. It starts kind of working that process of these clips releasing, but we got it off no problem. Same thing with the painted top portion of the mirror. There's going to be some clips that go all the way around here. It takes a little bit of pulling, but I know you can do it. With the skin removed from our mirror cover, we can work on removing the inner door card to get this whole mirror cover assembly out. I find it much easier to remove our paneling when our mirror is still bolted to the car. If you wanted to get all this stuff out, then disassemble it, I guess you could do that as well. But knowing that these things can be kind of a pain, I like it hard mounted to the car before I start popping everything off. And the reason we're going to want to expose the back of the mirror is for ease of getting our wiring from the top all the way down to the bottom of the base. Now that we got that, let's remove the door card. From inside our passenger door, there's going to be two small little tabs. You're going to see a black plastic tab inside our handle. Not to mention there's going to be a black tab by our door pull handle here. We're going to need to pop those up, and that's going to access two Phillips head screws that we're going to remove. We now have both of our Phillips head screws removed. At this point, we can go around the perimeter of our door card and just kind of pull towards you, and it's going to release all of our plastic clips. In most cases, you don't have to fully remove the door card. We really just have to gain access to this particular part of the paneling. So there's no real need to disconnect any of the electronics here or the door latch, but we are going to need to pull down this piece of plastic here, and you'll notice that there is like a dum-dum style material back there that kind of helps keep all of the moisture on this side of the door and not into the cabin. You're going to want to make sure most of this stays intact, if not all of it, and then we're going to be looking for this connector right here to disconnect. Our protective weather stripping has been moved out of place, and then in this small hole here, you will look up and see a 10mm bolt, and then in this oval oblong hole here, you can look up and see two 10mm bolts. See if I can get my light up in there, and there they are. You're going to remove all three of those pieces of hardware, then our mirror skeleton should pop off. At this point, all of our hardware has been removed, our wiring harness is disconnected and fed up to the mirror, so I should be able to just lift this whole assembly out, and then we can bring it over to the table. At the bottom of our mirror base, you're going to see that there is a rubber seal. We might have to pop this up just to kind of get in there behind it, and then on my particular application there is some weather stripping here, or basically some tape. I'm going to unwrap that tape in order to get the wiring harness from our weather stripping all the way up into the mirror housing. Next, we'll grab one of our provided wiring harnesses. Now this part is very important. On the end of the wiring harness, you're going to know that there's two different ends. We have two ends that are actually terminated leads with a male style terminal on there, and then on the other side is just a unterminated set of leads. On the back of our mirror, you'll notice that there is a female terminated lead on both of our mirrors. So we're going to need to make sure that our terminated leads here are actually up inside our mirror housing, and our unterminated leads on the other side are going to be what's fed into the car. At this point, it's in your best interest just to do what you can to fish all of this wiring up inside the mirror harness. Depending on if you have like a metal coat hanger that you can straighten out, or like a welding rod, which I like to use to actually get up in here and tie the harness to it and then pull it up through. But just do your best to try to get up there. Do understand that it's going to take a little bit of patience, so try not to get too frustrated, but you know, it's just all work. Here we go. Well, I found it easier to actually do the unterminated leads and run them from the top to the bottom. I found it much easier to do that than trying to run our terminated leads up through the mirror. It might just take some patience, but I'll tell you what, we got it done and we are moving on. If you want to take a closer look, I have my terminated leads up, and I ran this to the outside of the mirror because that's where our turn signal is going to be, so make sure you have enough lead up inside the mirror to reach all the way across from where it comes up. I would hate for you to put this whole thing back together and realize that you don't have enough wire lead to reach your new mirror. Here's another little tidbit. The twist tie that came off of your wiring harness, you can reuse this to kind of help, keep the wiring harness attached to the factory wiring harness and make it look pretty good and keep it out of the way of like the window rolling up and down in the future. There you go. Keeps everything all nice and tidy. At this point, we can reinstall our mirror back into the car, and then we will get to wiring up our unterminated leads. Yay, we're at the wiring, everybody's favorite part, right? Whee! Yeah, that's probably why you're watching the video, because wiring seems to be everybody's Achilles heel. So we're going to try to break this down into some pretty simple steps for you guys. What we have here is the harness that is attached to the car, and what we have here is the harness that we have attached to our mirror, what we fed through the door. And we have our leads coming out for the ends. So let's get to wire colors and pin positions. In our harness that was provided, we're going to use the black as our ground, and our black and white is going to signify power. What we have is one of our new mirrors mocked up because we are going to test fit everything and make sure all of our wiring works before we button up all of this stuff just to find out we have a problem. Long story short, if you were lucky enough to have the turn signals in the side of the mirror, you are going to have a power and ground that comes off of your factory harness that's attached to that mirror. But if you're a base model like me, you don't have that. But what you do have is all of that wiring in the car still, just not from the mirror to the outside. So if you take a look at our car harness on the passenger side, it's going to be our two bottom pins that we're looking at. The black wire on the bottom is going to be our ground, and our gray wire is going to act as our positive. Now, when we flip over to the driver's side and do this, this particular connector is going to be flipped. So the two pin connectors that we're going to be looking for are now the top two, left and right. Luckily, Noble's provided us with some gator clips, so we'll be able to just kind of cut the excess harness and put our terminal leads on it, and then with the gator clips, bite into our power and ground, and then tuck everything up real nice behind the door. Here's what our wiring looks like all finished up on the passenger side. Like I said, you are looking for the black to black wire for the ground, and then our black and white is going to go to the gray, which is the bottom two pins on the passenger side. And once again, look at that. Yeah, we are all hooked up, ready to go. So at this point in time, we can put our door card and everything back together. Then we can set our mirror lens in for the final time, and then we can transfer this whole thing over to the driver's side. We're ready to install our lens for the final time. Once again, we have our black and white wire for our power for our turn. We have our black wire, which will go in conjunction with the black wire from our harness. And then once we hook those two up, we can just put our heating element wires back on in no particular order. So we're going to do that right now. Black and white to black and white. Then black to black. Finally, we can hook up our heating element wires. Like I mentioned before, the way this mirror goes in is there is an L-shaped bracket up top that we will hook in. Then we can just snap it into the bottom. Finally, we can put all of our mirror skin back on. And then for one last test, we're just going to check again. And if that checks out real good, we're going to move over to the other side. Once again, I'm going to kind of touch on the wiring once I get there, but all of the same steps for the passenger side, we can just repeat for the driver's side. Our driver's side wiring is done. I just wanted to show you guys all of this so all of the information is there for you. Like I had mentioned, our pins on the other side were on the bottom, but because this connector is flipped on the driver's side, our pins are on the top. So our black wire is still going to our black wire, but our black and white power is now going to this white wire with red tracer. Other than that, our installation is absolutely identical to the other side, so there's not really much more to go over except for to put everything back together, make sure that our motors work on both sides, plus our turn signals, and then we can have all the fun we want with our wide-angle blue mirrors. Well, that just about wraps it up for our video today. We took an in-depth look at the Noble NBS wide-angle heated mirrors for the V8 chassis WRX. I think these things are going to do a fantastic job, especially at night, switching lanes, anything like that where I'm going to need that little bit of extra vision. Plus, with all these HID and LED headlights coming out these days, it's going to be real nice to have those options. Plus, I think the addition of the turn signal thing is pretty cool. I like it, especially now since I took the time to hook it up. All in all, this job really wasn't that bad and was relatively easy to do start to finish, with the exception of actually removing the door cards in my opinion, which is probably the most intimidating part. This install was a pretty easy win. I would definitely recommend this install for an easy novice or into an intermediate style if you plan to hook up the lights. But all in all, really wasn't that bad. I would just make sure you have a pick, have a magnet, a 10mm socket, and then, a plastic panel popper is going to help you from scratching or scraping anything up. Anyway, it's time to hit the streets with this bad boy, so for thousands of parts just like this and all the other cool things, be sure to hit up importimageracing.com for all of the best deals on the web and in the world, and we'll catch you on the next one.